and to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, no less, joining us live from Labour Party conference. A very good morning to you, Chancellor. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
We're looking forward to your speech later on, and we've seen the trails. You're announcing a new youth guarantee.
Yes, there are almost 1 million young people who are not in education, employment or training. That has a terrible impact on them throughout their lives. There's loads of evidence that shows if you are out of work for long periods early on in what should be the beginning of your working life, then you're more likely to experience other bouts of unemployment, lower wages, mental health problems. And so we want to tackle this scourge. 1 in 8 young people today are not in education, employment or training. And so at the spending review just before the summer, I put record amounts of money into further education and into apprenticeships. And I'm building on that today with the Youth Guarantee, which says that if a young person is out of work for 18 months, they'll be guaranteed that backstop, if you will, a paid work placement so that they can start to get those skills and prove themselves in the workplace.
And where do those paid work placements come from? Are they in the public sector, or have you spoken to the private sector and this is something that they're ready to offer?
So there's support today welcoming from business organisations this commitment, and they want to work with us. I'm only just announcing this policy today, and so the period of working with businesses will happen between now and the budget, and we'll set out more details then. But there are still hundreds of thousands of job vacancies in the economy. Lots of businesses tell me that they're still struggling to recruit people with the skills that they need, and so this will be backed by government money with some form of subsidy for those work placement, but we'll work through that with businesses now ahead of the budget. But this very much builds on what the last Labour government did. You'll remember the New Deal for working people and the New Deal for young people, which said that there was no option of just staying on benefits. You had to accept those opportunities for either training or a job, and that's what we're doing here to end the scourge of long-term youth unemployment once and for all.
And if you don't accept that offer, then no benefits? Is that the implication?
Well, that's always been the case with the welfare state. It's not the case that unemployment benefits or universal credit are an alternative to work. That support is only available when work is not available. And so, of course, if we're offering that paid work placement, you can't say, no, I don't fancy doing that. I'd rather stay on the benefits. And that's absolutely right, because we do need a welfare system that is based on the principle of contribution, that you put something in, you take the opportunities that are available for you, but that the state is there when you need it, whether that is an NHS that's free at the point of need or a welfare state that is there for you when you are sick or disabled or not able to find work. So, yes, of course, the welfare state will continue to be based on that principle.
Is it a start of a broader attempt to reform welfare once again?
We do need to reform our welfare system. I think everybody recognises that. We've got 1,000 people going on to disability benefits every single day. Many of those are young people, and I want young people to be out there working and contributing, not being written off with the expectation that they'll never work. And that's why the Work and Pensions Minister, Stephen Timms, is working with disabled groups to make sure that we design an appropriate system that, of course, is always there for people when they need it, but also gives people more opportunities to work and to train, and that support to do so.
Chancellor, I wanted to move more broadly to look ahead to the budget. I know you won't give me any specifics, but on a broad point, is it fair to say that whatever hole exists, in inverted commas, will be filled by tax increases, not more borrowing and not spending cuts?
Well, I made a solemn promise at the election to return economic and fiscal stability to the economy, and that is anchored around the fiscal rules that say that we will pay for day-to-day spending through tax receipts and that we'll get debt down as a share of GDP. Subject to that, invest in those things to help grow our economy. And it's been those commitments to economic and fiscal stability that have enabled 5 cuts in interest rates so far and seen wages rise at a faster rate than prices, something that we didn't experience very often under the last Conservative government. So those commitments to the fiscal rules, to economic stability, they absolutely stand. We'll respond to the budget with a budget on the 26th of November. We haven't yet received the forecasts from the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, but of course we will respond to those with a combination of changes, if needed, to tax and to spending, and I'll be setting out all of that on the 26th of November.
Obviously, the Bank of England has cut rates, but long-term borrowing costs have risen and risen fairly significantly. Is there an argument, as you approach these decisions you're going to have to make, to take some short-term political pain for longer-term economic gain or sensible economic decisions? And with that, I'm asking whether or not some of those manifesto pledges should be considered to be movable. Time has passed, that there's a lot of pressure on the finances. Do you think it's worth looking again at some of those taxes you'd pledged not to increase, the big levers, if you will?
Well, first of all, you made the point about long-term borrowing costs, and look, there are global headwinds at the moment. We can see that the world has changed hugely since the last election, and borrowing costs for all economies, certainly at the long end of the curve, have gone up, often significantly, and we're not immune to that in Britain as an open trading economy. But those manifesto commitments we made in the manifesto 15 months ago, those commitments stand, and the reason we made those commitments was because working people had been the ones that bore the brunt of the economic mismanagement of the previous government, and I want to make working people better off, which is why we made those commitments and why we stand by those commitments that we made in the manifesto.
Would an increase in VAT directly be a tax on working people?
Well, that was part of our manifesto pledges, because if we're talking about living standards, the prices in the shops are obviously central to people's living standards, and it was inflation getting out of control in the last Parliament which probably most contributed to the deterioration of people's living standards. You'll remember, and I came on your programme to talk about it, inflation went above 11% under the previous Conservative government, and after Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget 3 years ago, interest rates went through the roof, pensions were put in peril, the pound plummeted, and that's why, first and foremost, I've made that commitment to never play fast and loose with the public finances, because it has consequences for working people, and I'm determined that at the end of this Parliament, people are better off. It may sound like a small thing, but the last Parliament was the worst on record for living standards, and I want to turn that around.
There's a lot to sort of unpack there. I guess, of course, interest rates did rise, but they came back down under the Tory government. And yes, inflation spiked.
No, they didn't come back down. No, wait a second. They didn't come back down under the Conservative government. The first cuts to interest rates since that mini-budget was last August under this Labour government, because we've returned stability to the
with all due respect, Chancellor, I mean, I wasn't even going to bother going here, but you're just saying that Liz Truss caused a spike in interest rates. The spike in interest rates that she caused was the long end of the yield curve. The Bank of England didn't move over that crazy month. Those did come back down, and they are now higher than they were then. We didn't even have to go here, but since you brought it up and made that argument, and I guess it comes back to this one key point, which is forgive me. Let me get to the question, Chancellor. Please forgive me. Just let me get to the question, because earlier on in the interview, you suggested that the rise in long-term interest rates that we've seen over the course of your government was purely down to foreign factors. So this, I think, is the crux of the issue. Do you accept that the higher borrowing costs at the long end of the yield curve that we face in the UK comes at some responsibility to you, who's been in power now for a year and a half?
Well, first of all, the Bank of England did increase interest rates under the last Conservative government, took interest rates to 5.25%. They didn't start coming down until we came into power last July, and they've now been cut 5 times and now stand at 4%. That is what has happened to bank rate. Now, at the long end of the curve, you are right that borrowing costs have gone up. But if you look at the charts and look at the numbers, as you do, as I do as well, those long-term borrowing costs are something that's been experienced by countries all around the world. We're not immune to those, but movements in the UK have not been out of line with what we've seen globally. And global borrowing costs are going up for a whole variety of reasons. Global uncertainty around trade, ongoing conflicts in Europe and also in the Middle East, and also globally, many countries are borrowing more. Now, actually, in the UK, we are reducing the deficit. We will be meeting our fiscal rules, meeting them early, in fact, according to the Office of Budget Responsibility, with both balancing day-to-day spending with tax receipts and bringing debt down as a share of GDP. So we've got those fiscal rules for a reason, to return stability to the economy, to keep interest rates and inflation as low as possible, and that is what I'm delivering as Chancellor of the Exchequer. Is there more to do to make working people better off? Absolutely. Is there more to do to give businesses the confidence to invest? I'm the first to accept that that is the case. But if someone had said 15 months ago that we would have had the fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of this year, 5 cuts in interest rates and trade deals with the biggest economies in the world, the US, India and the European Union, I think you would have said, I don't think so, Chancellor. But we have achieved those things and I'm proud of them. Yes, there is more to do, but we are moving in the right direction to improve living standards for working people and to grow our economy to make working people and businesses better off.
I know we're out of time, Chancellor. There's lots that we could continue to discuss and agree to disagree on, or agree on, actually, in a lot of what you said. But I know we're out of time, so we'll have to leave you there. And we look forward to your speech later.